Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. This is a brief video on the number of Rakat Tarawih from the time of the Prophet ﷺ till now. So what we find is during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, he prayed the Tarawih prayer with the Sahaba radiallahu anhum for a few nights. And thereafter the Prophet ﷺ, he ceased praying with them for the fear that it would become something farad, obligatory upon the Ummah. So the Prophet ﷺ had stopped it during his time. And thereafter we find during the time of Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, that the Jama'at of Tarawih was prayed either in small groups or people prayed by themselves individually, because of the fact that his Khilafah was very short and there are many other pressing situations to deal with at the time. During the time of Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu, one large Tarawih Jama'at was instituted. Now the question is, at his time, how many rakats were made sunnah? We find that Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu ordered a man to lead them in 20 rakat during Ramadan. This is a hadith in Musannaf ibn Abi Shayba. There is an entire chapter about how many rakat are supposed to be performed within the month of Ramadan. Imam Nawawi, Hafiz al-Iraqi, As-Suyuti, rahimahullah ta'ala, and amongst others, have accepted the authenticity of this hadith. Well, we find that it has further corroboration from one of the narrations. Isa ibn Yazid, that he narrates that we used to perform 20 rakat and witr in the time of Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu. As to why we accept the narration of Sa'id bin Yazid from his student Yazid bin Khasifa versus his narration from Muhammad bin Yusuf, one can look at these slides for further details. As we continue, we find Ata rahimahullah ta'ala narrates, I found the Muslims praying 23 rak'at, including the witr salah in Ramadan. We find that Nafi' rahimahullah ta'ala narrates from Ibn Umar that Ibn Abi Mulaika rahimahullah used to lead us in 20 rak'at during Ramadan. And we also find Sa'id bin Ubaid rahimahullah ta'ala narrating that Ali bin Rabi'a rahimahullah used to lead us in Salah during Ramadan with 5 tarawihat. We also find from Abdullah Aziz bin Rufay' that the Muslims at the time would be performing 23 rakats. This is also from Al-Harith rahimahullah ta'ala, and we also find it from Abdul Bakhtari rahimahullah ta'ala as well. This is the general trend at the time of Umar radiallahu anhu. If we continue forward, we find that the Sahaba had performed 23 rakats during the time of Umar radiallahu anhu, Uthman radiallahu anhu, Ali radiallahu anhu. The narrations by Ali radiallahu anhu, that it says from Shutayr bin Shakal that Ali radiallahu anhu would lead them in 20 rakats of Tarawih and offer 3 rakats of witr. So we understand that this is a general trend, and there are more narrations that come from Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu. And we find that Imam Tirmidhi rahimahullah that summarizes it under this chapter. He says Umar, Ali, as well as other companions, and Sufyan al-Thawri, Ibn Mubarak, and Imam al-Shafi'i believed in 20 rakats of Tarawih. So now we can go into the question about how many rakat did the Prophet ﷺ himself perform. So we have this narration from Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu reported in Bayhaqi that the Prophet ﷺ used to pray 20 rakat and witr without a jama'ah in Ramadan. There is a discussion about one of the narrators in the chain, the actual grandfather of Sayyidina Abu Bakr ibn Abi Shayba rahimahullah ta'ala, Ibrahim bin Uthman. And so there is legitimate discussion as to how weak he is and if the narration can be credible. And if for further details, you may look at the slide, inshallah. But for sake of argument, even if we accept his weakness, there are other factors to consider which can indicate towards the authenticity of a hadith. For example, the practice of the Muslims and the Ummah in general. This report is supported by the persistence of the Khulafa and the companions during the nights of Ramadan and the amount mentioned therein. We mentioned in the introduction that a mursal report is weak according to Shafi'i and those who follow him. However, when it concurs with the statement of a companion, it is taken as evidence according to everyone. Ibn Humam mentions this clearly in Fathul Qadir, where he states the statement of Tirmidhi, the practice of the people of knowledge is upon this strengthens the origin, even though the specific route is weak. So even though the narration itself might be considered weak, the practice of the people, meaning the ulama upon this hadith, can consider it a strengthening or corroborating factor to help bolster the narration. And this is probably why, as to why Ibn Shayba rahimahullah ta'ala quotes from about 10 companion successors about 23 rakats. And then at the end of the chapter, he actually brings this hadith to show that the hadith is credible based on the practice of the ummah. So this is the matter amongst the Sahaba radiallahu anhum that ultimately settled upon 20 rakats of Tarawih. And so the 4 madahib have followed suit afterwards. We find from Imam Hanifa rahimahullah, when his student Abu Yusuf asked him about the action of Umar radiallahu anhu, he said Tarawih is sunnah mu'akkada. Umar did not invent it himself. As not an innovator in that. He only gave instructions due to a basis according to him and the precedence from the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How could anyone consider that Umar would make a bid'ah waliyadu billah or something that was against the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Ibn Hajar rahimahullah ta'ala narrates from Imam Rafi' rahimahullah, for 2 nights the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam led 20 rakats of prayer each night. And Ibn Hajar rahimahullah says that these scholars of hadith are unanimous about the soundness of this report, based again upon the practice of the ummah. The Hanbalis have the same opinion as well. There has been the companions' consensus on 20 rakats of Tarawih, notwithstanding the fact that the Maliki madhab has the opinion that Tarawih should be performed with 36 rakats. But they themselves still acknowledge the fact that the original prayer of Tarawih is 20 rakats. And they certainly do not say anything less or lower than 20 rakats of Tarawih. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah also has the opinion, it has been proven without a doubt that Ubay ibn Ka'ab used to lead the companions during Ramadan for 20 rakats and 3 rakats of witr. Hence, it is the principle of most of the ulama that this is the sunnah. So now the question comes, because people will find a hadith and they'll say that Aisha radiallahu anha narrates that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not pray more than 11 rakats in Ramadan or any other month. And they will consider that this is probably how Tarawih should be performed with 11 rakats. But we have to first understand is that what is this prayer referring to? It seems like, according to the muhaddithin that have narrated this hadith, that this refers to tahajjud, because of the fact that we find that Imam Muslim rahimahullah, Imam Nawawi brings the chapter titles for his book, and we find that he brings it under the chapter of tahajjud. We also find that Imam Abu Dawud rahimahullah brings under tahajjud, Imam Tirmidhi brings under tahajjud, we find Imam Nasai bring under tahajjud, Imam Malik rahimahullah also brings under the chapter of tahajjud, and Imam Bukhari himself also, he brings it under 2 chapters, one under Ramadan, the other one under tahajjud. So it indicates that he understood that this is a prayer which is also performed within Ramadan along with the Tarawih, meaning during the tahajjud, the Qiyamul Layl prayers. So we find that she also said that it's in Ramadan or any other month. And we all know that Tarawih is a special prayer inside Ramadan only. So she's not referring to Tarawih, she's referring to tahajjud. We also find that she says to the Prophet ﷺ, do you sleep before you perform witr? Meaning that this is a prayer which is performed at the end of the night, not at the beginning. And we all know that Tarawih was performed during the time of the Prophet ﷺ as well, in the beginning of the night. So this is referring to tahajjud, not referring to Tarawih. And so this is the biggest question that we have, is that why didn't she object to something done before her eyes? When she's seeing from all the narrations that we have established, that Tarawih was being performed with 20 rakats, why didn't she come and say that there was an issue here? This is the same question Allama Mawsili rahimahullah brings, the great Hanafi scholar, that he, Sayyidina Umar, did this in the presence of a large group of companions. Among them are the likes of Sayyidina Uthman, Sayyidina Ali, Sayyidina Mas'ud, Sayyidina Abbas, Sayyidina Ibn Abbas, Sayyidina Talha, Sayyidina Zubayr, Sayyidina Mu'adh, Sayyidina Ubay, and others among the Muhajirin and Ansar. None of them objected to him, rather they assisted him and concurred with him. There's a beautiful book, At-Tarawih Aktharu min Alfi Aam fi Masjid al-Nabi alayhi salam, by Muhammad Salim, where he brings the prayer of Tarawih inside Masjid Nabawi for over 1,000 years. And in there he comes to the opinion, after showing you how the prayer has shifted between the Maliki opinion of 36 and 20, he mentions وَهَذَا مِمَّا يُؤَكِّدُ أَنَّ التَّرَوِيحَ ظَلَّتْ بَعْدَ الْأَلْفِ سَنَةٍ عَلَى مَا كَانَ عَلَيْهِ عِنْدَ تَمَامِ الْأَلْفِ 39 رَكَعَةً منها 3 وترا وتصلى 20 أول الليل و16 آخره. Where he says this further emphasizes the fact that after 1,000 years, Tarawih has continued upon 36 rakats, 20 rakats in the beginning of the night, and 16 rakats at the end. And he goes and mentions a beautiful point about the following of the Khulafa Rashidun. وعلى كل فهو عمل يدخل في سنة الخلفاء الراشدين المهديين رضوان الله تعالى عليهم وكان أهل مكة عاملين بالأصل وليس هناك موجب للزيادة على 20. Here he mentions very beautifully the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, عليكم بسنتي وسنة الخلفاء الراشدين المهديين عضوا عليها بالنواجذ. The reason why we are so strong on this issue about Tarawih being 20 rakats from the Sunnah Mu'akkada is because it is a binding Sunnah that the Prophet ﷺ instituted upon us based on this hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said, binding upon you is my Sunnah, and the Sunnah the rightly guided successors, hold on to it with your molars. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for tawfiq and understanding, and that He allow us that we practice the Sunnah in the correct way, in a way that is acceptable to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala.